Hello and welcome to episode 9 of Into the Massiverse, where we are shifting gears and moving our focus from Throne of Glass to A Court of Thorns and Roses. Today we're going to be discussing the first book in the Court of Thorns and Roses series, which is aptly named A Court of Thorns and Roses, in the same way that the first book in the Throne of Glass series is also called Throne of Glass. Why reinvent the wheel? Now, fortunately for us, as we're doing these recaps, at the moment, the ACOTAR series, as it's better known, is only 5 books long. The first 4 focus on a female main character called Feyre, and the 5th follows her sister, Nesta. Like many people, these were the first Sarah J Maas books I actually read. So today we're discussing the very first Sarah J Maas book I ever picked up, which is just really, really cute. I'm sure you've noticed the difference in setting. It is very, very cold outside still, so I have moved the cameras and equipment indoors. We're currently in my reading nook. I did, however, remember to bring all of the books with me, so at least we have a somewhat thematic display, even though these are not the shelves these books normally live on. Needs must, guys, needs must. If you're going to blame anyone, blame Bloomsbury and Sarah J Maas for releasing House of Flame and Shadow at the coldest time of the year. If they released it in summer, I could have recorded all of these videos outside. But, que sera, sera. Let's get started and begin talking about A Court of Thorns and Roses, the first book in the A Court of Thorns and Roses series. Now, these books are set in a place called Prithium, a nation where humans live down in the south and Fae lived north of a divide called the Vale. For centuries before this series is set, humans were enslaved by Fae, but thanks to a civil war amongst the Fae years prior, there is now a treaty in place between Fae and humans that dictates what they can and cannot do to each other. Generally speaking, humans stay out of the Fae realm up north, and Fae do not travel south of the Vale. In fact, they can't. Book 1 starts off as we follow a young woman called Feyre, who lives just south of the Vale. She is the youngest of 3 sisters, all of whom are relevant to the plot of this story. Nesta, the oldest, Elaine, the second oldest, and Feyre, the baby of the family. Her father was a very successful merchant who lost all of his wares at sea. Their mother has passed away, and since then the family have fallen on very, very hard times. Feyre is essentially the sole supporter of her family, and she spends her days hunting in the woodlands north of her home. The book starts with Feyre hunting in the woods, and she has been tracking a doe through the snow. You find out that Feyre herself is incredibly hungry and that her family are pretty much at the end of their stores. So if Feyre does not kill a creature today and bring it home with her, there is the very high possibility that her family will starve. So when Feyre comes across a giant great wolf attacking the doe that she has been tracking, she reaches into her quiver and whips out an arrow. Now she does pause for a second to think, wow, I'm very close to the veil between the human realm and Fae realm right now. And that wolf is suspiciously large. There is a chance, a distinct possibility, that this wolf is actually a Fae in animal form. But Feyre is so hungry and so desperate to get home that she makes the conscious decision that that does not matter to her. She is not a fan of the Fae. Most humans aren't. We actually see clear examples of the Archeron sisters. That's her family, by the way. She is Feyre Archeron, speaking quite passionately about their dislike for the Fae. The arrow Feyre decides to use is made of ash, a wood well known for being capable of killing Fae, and she shoots the wolf, bringing home plenty of meat and pelts and hides to sell at market. Fortunately, or unfortunately, depending on how you look at the story, the treaty between humans and Fae dictates that if you were to kill a member of the opposite race, your life is forfeit. So that night, a Fae barges into the Archeron house and demands Feyre's life in payment for the life of one of his subjects. And we find out this particular Fae is called Tamlin, and he is the High Lord of the Spring Court. Feyre has killed a member of his court, and thus he demands Feyre's life in exchange. Feyre is fully expecting to be killed at this point, but he says, no, you've got to come with me, and you are going to come and live in my court. You're coming to the spring court with me. So Homegirl leaves her family behind and travels north of the Vale into the Fey realm of Prythian for the very first time. Now, Prythian is split up into separate courts. There are 7. Tamlin is obviously the High Lord of the Spring Court section, but there are 4 seasonal courts and 3, I guess I'm going to use the word lunar courts. So you have spring, summer, autumn, winter, day, night, and dawn. Each with their own High Lord, each with very different geography, and the High Lords of each region have powers that you would traditionally associate with that season. For example, the High Lord of Autumn can control fire. Feyre arrives at the Spring Court to find a beautiful manor house. Homegirl's massively upgraded from her janky shack. And it turns out the 2 main people living in this manor house are Tamlin and his best friend, Lucien. We find out that Lucien, this one of the Sun, the High Lord of Autumn, but that Lucien is very much in hiding from his father and chilling out in the Spring Court with his bestie Tamlin and new bestie Feyre. There are several things that really confuse Feyre when she arrives in the Spring Court. Number 1 is that she is not treated like a prisoner at all. It's just like, hey, you live here now. Cool. And second of all is that everyone in Tamlin's household has these masks stuck to their faces. And when she asks about it, you find out that there is some kind of magic or spell, a blight, if you will, that has befallen the court. And they're all stuck with these janky masks on their faces that are stuck there with magic. They literally cannot take them off. So I want you to imagine, if I physically describe Tamlin and Lucien to you, I want you to imagine these 2 people, but with masquerade masks on their face, okay? Tamlin's really tall, he's beautiful, he's got this luscious blonde hair, whereas Lucien, golden skin, redhead, one golden metallic eye with like a scar across where he was attacked. Both gorgeous men, but all the way through this book, they have masks on their faces. Feyre finds out that they're kind of looking for some kind of cure for the blight that has befallen everyone she gets to meet. Although she doesn't get to meet a lot of people, trust me, there's a reason for that. The concern is expressed that this blight, whatever it may be, could spread over to the mortal lands, which concerns Feyre greatly because, her family are there. She's also very worried that without her there to hunt for them, that they're going to have no way of providing for themselves. And when she expresses this concern, Tamlin says, hey, Feyre, do not stress. I'm on it like a car bonnet. I'll make sure that they're taken care of. Now, Feyre doesn't really have a lot to do now that she lives in the Spring Court. Homegirl is a doer, right? So she's just kind of twiddling her thumbs with nothing to do. And it seems like Tamlin's trying to be a friend, but he's a bit of a grumpy, standoffish guy. It's a lot easier to become friends with Lucien, but Lucien is very much Tamlin's homeboy. So they're kind of a package deal. And Feyre, she just doesn't know who to trust. Tamlin does, however, discover that Feyre is quite an avid artist. So he buys her a ton of paints and sets them all up in the library and it's like, well, if you want to, you can fill your time painting here. This is literally a girl who has been fighting for survival for so long. She's like, oh, I can just chill and paint now. How is this a punishment? Now as time goes on, Feyre's like, this is too good to be true. Okay, and no one's really giving me answers to what else is going on here. I.e., what is the blight that you're all kind of passively working on but not telling me anything about? And she finds out that there are basically 2 kinds of Fae. There are high Fae, like Tamlin and Lucien, who are these tall, handsome, human-esque creatures with pointy ears who can do some kind of magic. And there are low fae, like pixies and sprites, and she hears of a kind of low fae called a Suriel, who quite literally cannot lie. Apparently they're really hard to find and get your hands on, but if you capture one, it has to tell you the truth. And obviously, Feyre wants to know what's going on. Informed is armed in many situations. And Feyre is a girl who likes to be prepared. And when she's chatting to Lucian about these creatures that are really, really hard to catch, he's like, well, I actually have heard that they're just quite like food or nice things. So Feyre's like, aha, okay, great shout. I'm going to go and make a lure, which is a kind of hunting trap. So she lays out bait and catches herself a Suriel, like on the first go. When it comes to hunting, girl is the goat. So she starts asking the Suriel questions about what's going on. And if you haven't heard of the ACOTAR Suriel before, I just want to let you know that this one character appears more than once. And every ACOTAR fan is a stan of the Suriel, because the Suriel spills piping hot tea at every opportunity. We love the Suriel. Now, the Suriel shares that the fairy kingdom just across the sea from Prythian, Hybern, is ruled by an evil king. And he is totally not cool with the treaty that's in place between Fae and humans. Homeboy is a massive fan of humans equal Fae slaves. In his mind, and the mind of a lot of very traditional Fae, the hierarchy goes high Fae, low Fae, animals, humans. And Azuriel explains that this guy, Hybern, he sent over spies 100 years ago, and about 50 years ago, one of the spies he'd sent to infiltrate the Fae courts in Prythian betrayed him. But before the Suriel can explain any more, Feyre gets attacked by this evil-looking Fae, and Tamlin rushes in and saves her life. So, from this point onwards, Feyre and Tamlin, they've kind of got a truce going on, okay? She starts to realise maybe he's not, like, that bad a guy. Now, the longer Feyre stays in the Spring Court, the more odd things keep on happening. And these warnings start turning up. For example, there's a Summer Court fairy who turns up and his wings have been ripped off of his body. He's dying and all he keeps saying is, she took them. And Feyre keeps on overhearing conversations about her. She later finds out that she is the self-proclaimed fairy queen of Prythian, Amarantha. Dun, dun, dun. Now, there is a solstice celebration happening, as you can imagine, as a seasonal court. So they have a special solstice at their time of the year. And spring solstice is coming up, and that is called Calamai. This will be a significant date in book 1 of ACOTAR. Now, Feyre and Tamlin, they are getting chummy. They go off to this field where they kiss for the first time. And then the solstice itself begins. And as Tamlin is the Lord of Spring, Calamai, their spring solstice festival, is obviously all centered around fertility. And while it all starts off quite sweet, Tamlin makes it very clear to Feyre that he expects her to stay inside the manor during the night. But Homegirl's not going to stay indoors. It's like a full-on party. There's bonfires, there's music. And so Homegirl sneaks on out, gets herself some fairy wine, and is having a blast. And these two guys, they start getting a bit pushy with her, okay? They're like, they try it on. She's like, no, not interested. And then they keep on trying it on. Just as she's getting a little bit stressed out, the most beautiful man she has ever seen. And that's the phrase Sarah J Maas uses, the most beautiful man she has ever seen, swoops in and just says, oh, I've been looking for you. And the two other guys back off, and she turns round. And he just encourages her to leave. He's like, it's not safe for you here. You're human. What are you doing here? And she's just a little bit gagged. He delivers this message and then goes to leave. And she's like, whoa. Who are you, handsome stranger? And I mean, he is gorgeous. Purple eyes, jet black hair. Nom. But he's just charming and dashing and just keeps repeating this sentiment of, look, I don't want you to get hurt. Humans shouldn't be here. Bad things are happening. If you can, Sneak yourself home. Get south of that veil as soon as you can. At this point, I considered myself incredibly titillated. Feyre comes to find out the fertility nature of Calamai when it's revealed to her that as part of the party and ceremony, the Lord of Spring is overcome by the festive spirit and will find a woman or women to celebrate the party with. It basically descends into some kind of like massive frantic orgy where all of that energy helps replenish the fertility of the land. Tamlin obviously ends up finding Feyre because she is not in her bedroom with the door locked as he instructed her, and let's just say there's a bit where he pins her up against the wall, and even I was like, oh, Tamlin. Oh. And it is at this point that the relationship between Tamlin and Feyre goes from grumpy captor, reluctant, plucky captee to OMG. We're gonna bang against every surface in this building. Full stop. And I love that for Feyre. Make this situation work for you, babe. However, Tamlin gets a surprise visit from another High Lord, and everyone is stressed out. Okay, they try to hide Feyre, but this High Lord notices she's there. And we are gagged to find that this High Lord is none other than Rhysand, High Lord of the Night Court. And he is, in fact, the mystery man from Calamai who came and tried to warn Feyre to run away while she still could. While Tamlin is all golden, sunny, spring, sunshine coded, Rhys is dark and edgy. And unsurprisingly, nighttime focused. And it is made very clear that Rhysand is closely associated with Queen Amarantha, and that he has been sent there by her for some reason. When he sees Feyre, he asks her explicitly, "What is your name?" It's funny because he's asking her, but you're also getting the impression that he's encouraging her, be smart. Be smart. You know what I told you yesterday. Feyre hasn't mentioned at all to Lucien or Tamlin that she has already met Rhysand before. So she makes up a name, and she says that her name is Claire Bedder, the name of a girl in her village she's not a massive fan of. And Rhys is like, okay, there are threats made. Tamlin begs Rhysand not to say anything about Feyre to Amarantha, but it's quite clear that Rhys has asked for her name so that he can pass whatever information he needs to along. Let's just say it's a good thing that Feyre lied about her name. After this altercation, Tamlin is adamant that Feyre needs to go home. He packs her up and sends her back to the human realm. Yeah. This whole shtick of your life is now forfeit, you're going to come live here forever. No. One visit from Rhysand, and Tamlin packs her up and sends her home, just as she's pretty much admitted to herself that she has fallen in love with him. And before she can tell him that, he's like, no, go. I do not want you here anymore. It's all way too dangerous. Go home. So Feyre is massively bummed out, okay? She's got used to life in the Spring Court. She loves the people around her. She loves Dorman, who's been looking after her Alice, and her friends, Lucien, Tamlin, who she's fallen in love with. So when she gets home, she is miserable. Tamlin has sent her family all of this money. They now live in a lovely manor house. But interestingly enough, while everyone has been glamoured to kind of think, oh, Feyre, she's just away with an aunt somewhere, her eldest sister, Nesta, was somehow unaffected by the glamour Tamlin put everybody under. So Nesta has been stressed the fuck out trying to find her little sister, who everyone else talks about as if she's all gone away on holiday. And Nesta's like, we were attacked. This High Lord Fae came into our home, and everyone else tells her she's crazy. It's important to note as well that Nesta is 100% not nice. She's a total bitch. I love her. She is mean. She is nasty. And when Feyre comes back, she is like, where the hell have you been? We also find out that Nesta was so concerned about Feyre that she went and tried to find like another hunter to help get her across the Vale. And she'd been hiking out through the woods. She was going to walk across the Vale if she could find a way through to get her little sister back. So anyone who's like, oh, Nesta, she's so mean, she's so horrible, she doesn't like Feyre. She doesn't have to like her. She obviously loves her. Homegirl is glad that she's back. So obviously Feyre can be honest with Nesta about what she's just experienced and what she's been through. Which is particularly funny because Nesta is like, wow, you got Stockholm syndrome. Build a bridge and get over it. Weeks pass, with Feyre now living a much nicer life than she did prior to the whole Fae saga, when another manor in the town gets burnt down, and it's the family of Claire Bedder.